Morning everyone. My name is Brijender Singh and I am here on behalf of Vajiram to discuss the ethics paper that was conducted in the mains of 2024. Now I'll be taking part of the discussion, and part of the discussion, roughly half of it, will be taken by my colleague Mr. Pathak, who, as I always say, needs no introduction. Now before I start with the discussion here, let me first briefly take a look at what exactly this paper was all about. If students have to anticipate what they have to do, what kind of a trend can we try to predict? Unfortunately, in this paper this year, it is very difficult to say what are the areas a student should focus on. But yes, one thing, your basic concepts should be right. What are your basic concepts? That you will never compromise public welfare. You will never contradict the Constitution. Second, your general reading. The more you read the newspapers, the more you are aware, the more you observe events that are happening around you, higher the probability that your paper would have gone over well. The ethics paper this year was not difficult, but yes, to a large extent, there were some questions that can be called unexpected. What is an unexpected question? For example, they've asked twice, once in the case studies and once in the theoretical part, they've asked questions related to artificial intelligence, which would not be very easy to anticipate, especially the kind of dimensions they were talking about. Nonetheless, if you're reading your newspapers well, if you're aware of the world, answering the question should not really be difficult, should not be challenging. There were a couple of questions which were based on women, gender-related issues, one question on the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. These are questions which would not have been difficult for any student to answer, provided again that your concepts are on track. Second, in this paper, as far as the case studies are concerned, they were relatively smaller. In 2022, 2023, we've seen case studies which were upwards of 550 words in length, extremely lengthy. This year, most of the case studies, there were one or two of them which were about 400 words in length, but many of them were between 250 to 300. This now, what is the advantage? Since they are smaller, they give students more time to think. They give them more time to write. Otherwise, with a lengthy case study, by the time you finish reading it itself, you realize that 3 to 4 minutes have gone by in just understanding what the question was asking. So that was a bit of an advantage. Again, there were multiple questions which made it difficult in the case studies to add depth. When in one particular case we are asking you 4 questions and the total word limit is 250 words, you can just very briefly write points. And here, yes, this much I will definitely add over here. Your points also should be multiple. If you're a student preparing right now for the exam next year, per question you should have at least 3 points. If you are sitting for the mains, let's say we are discussing this after your prelims, per question there should be 4 or 5 points. Small, brief points, but nonetheless multiplicity will add a lot of marks to your final score. Fourth, some of the questions were very general, and since they were general, it was difficult to use ethical terminology. If you look at the ethics paper carefully, and if you try to compare it with the syllabus given by the UPSC, identifying where exactly those portions will fall in the syllabus is somewhat difficult. There were a couple of questions which were very, very general. For example, what are the difficulties faced by female civil servants? Now, for this, you don't really need to pick up a book and study. Like I said, a person who's reading the papers, a person who's observant, will be able to frame 4, 5, 6 points very comfortably. Therefore, using ethical terminology was a little difficult, which is surprising, because a paper at the end of the day should be testing a candidate's ethics and values. And finally, most importantly, the one challenge for almost all the students and the one task that you have, it is absolutely essential to complete the paper in time. Just because you have a good answer for one question does not mean that you only focus on that question and ignore the others. Very often, because I have content on one particular question, students try to beautify that answer, write that very well, make a small diagram, their handwriting also improves. What they don't realize is that at the cost of this one question, you may end up compromising 2 or 3 questions, especially in the last half an hour or so. So throughout the discussion that we have here, please pay attention to the points and most importantly, focus on how you complete the paper in a relatively small span of time. On average, for a theoretical question, a student would have about 6 minutes in which to finish. For case studies, you would have roughly about 16 minutes per question. In this time, you have to read the question or the case. You have to understand what it is asking. You have to frame the answer in your mind and you have to finish writing it off. Immediately as you finish one answer, you'll have to switch over to the next. There is literally no time to think, which is why, again, learn to be brief, learn to be precise. Now, keeping that in mind, let me start by looking at question number 3 that was given. Question number 1 and 2, Mr. Pathak will take up. Question number 3 is that segment of your ethics paper where they give you 3 quotations and they ask you what do they mean to you? What do they imply to you in the present context? First of the quotes given this year was, learn everything that is good from others, but bring it in and in your own way absorb it. Do not become others. Swami Vivekananda. Now, in these questions, what are you supposed to do? 2 things. Number 1, when you start the answer in your introduction, briefly, and briefly would mean somewhere between 25 to 40 words, explain what does the quotation mean to you. Number 2, when you're writing your answer down, like I said earlier also, write multiple points. Number 3, throughout your ethics paper, with the exception of case studies, in section A, for every question that is given to you, please remember the quality of your answer is directly based on the quality of your examples. The better your examples, the more diverse your examples, the better your answer will become. However, please remember, when you're writing these examples, try not to give personal examples unless specifically asked. And number 2, don't give hypothetical examples. Don't make up examples over there. Give real examples. Now, keeping this in mind, if I go back to this particular question, it says learn everything that is good from others, absorb it, and do not become others. What does that mean? That if you want to grow, if you want to progress, if you want to develop and mature, whether you are an individual, whether you are an organization, whether you are a country, you will have to learn from others. It is not possible for any individual, any entity to be able to understand and do everything only on their own. It's important to get experiences from others, but when you learn something from others, it is equally important that you modify it according to you, according to your circumstances, according to your abilities. While learning from others, it is very important that you don't forget who you are. You do not lose your individuality. This you will write briefly in about 25 to 40 words in the introduction. This would be roughly 2 sentences. Now write multiple points. Now, if I say that you're learning from others and you should modify it according to who you are, let me start first by looking at the dimension of the individual. For an individual, which person will I talk about? Mahatma Gandhi. Now, Mahatma Gandhi was heavily influenced, among other people, heavily influenced by 2 people particularly, Leo Tolstoy and Thoreau. From Leo Tolstoy, he assimilated the importance of Christianity, of Christian beliefs. On the other hand, from Thoreau, he learnt about civil disobedience. However, despite being heavily influenced by the ideas, Mahatma Gandhi's merit and Mahatma Gandhi's greatness is that he was able to modify them and develop his own philosophy, his own ideology of ahimsa. Had he blindly followed what Tolstoy was saying, what Thoreau was saying, probably his learnings would not have been understood by Indians, would not have been applicable in the Indian context. That's why we say learn from others, but absorb it, make it your own, do not become others. Same statement, if I look at it from an economic point of view, this is India. Immediately after independence, we chose neither capitalism, we chose neither socialism, we chose the mixed economy model. Learn from others, but modify it. So here we said that important pivotal functions where the private sector is very nascent, where the private sector does not have the ability, the government will perform these services. On the other hand, wherever it is possible, we will also encourage capitalism, although we will protect them, because at the moment, after 190 years of being a colony, it's not feasible, it's not sensible to immediately expose our private sector to global competition. And that is what leads to the mixed economy model. Third, if I look at it from an organizational point of view, almost every multinational corporation in the world uses these 4 words: think global but act local. You should have grand visions, you should have a big platform on which you want to operate, but simultaneously when you're taking actions, you must keep local factors in account. For example, KFC, and I did a extensive search on this, where all do they offer a vegetarian menu? Some countries, they offer it seasonally, periodically, temporarily. India is one of the very few countries where they have a permanent vegetarian menu. Why? Because they realize that this is a very important part of Indian culture. If you want to succeed, you cannot blindly copy something. You will have to adopt it according to the circumstances. Fourth, if I look at it at a national level, for India again, NABARD borrowed heavily from the Grameen Bank model of Bangladesh, but again modified it according to our particular circumstances. Microfinance, for example, in India is very different from the way it is conducted or it is operationalized in Bangladesh. And fifth, finally, let's say I add one more dimension over here, agriculture. In the Green Revolution, when we introduced our Green Revolution, we were influenced by Norman Borlaug's hybrid seeds. But at the same time, we also realized that in India, we had a problem of stem lodging. So what did we do? We developed high-yielding varieties to address this local problem, and which is probably the only reason or primary reason why the Green Revolution was successful. Question is simple, answer is simple, examples are simple. What matters more importantly is that you have two elements in your answer. Number one, briefly explain what this statement means to you. Number two, address the same statement from different perspectives, different dimensions, and the quality of your answer will depend upon the quality of your example. If you just say that individuals should learn from others, it's not a very convincing statement. It's a statement that I can't really understand. But if you add a small example, the meaning becomes absolutely clear. That was question 3A. Question 3B is a statement given by Vallabhbhai Patel. The statement says, faith is of no avail in the absence of strength. Faith and strength both are essential to accomplish any great work. Here, the key word that you have to keep in mind is this word here, both. If you want to do anything significant, anything worthwhile, you will need faith, you will also need strength. If you look at these students who are sitting for the civil services exam, the first thing that they need is faith, that they will pass the exam. Why is this faith important? Because out of 6 lakh people who will sit for the prelims, roughly 1,000 people will make it to the final list. And for the coveted services, the services that most students want, you will need a rank in the top 250. Only then are you safe. And if you want the cadre of your choice, you take it down to the top 100. To believe that out of 6 lakh people, you can be in the top 250, you have to have a tremendous amount of faith in yourself. But that faith itself is not enough. If you have only that faith, what will I call you? I will say that you're daydreaming. You're reinforcing the fact that you're going to pass, but you're not putting in the effort. Even if you put in the effort, it is not that you will get success instantly. There is a possibility that you will fail. There is a possibility you will struggle to understand certain subjects. There is a possibility that you will struggle to finish your syllabus in a reasonable span of time. Therefore, to achieve something significant with this faith, you will also need some strength. And what kind of strength? In fact, all these categories fall for the students also. In fact, you people, all these kinds of strength, you people will need. A student will need physical strength, mental strength, moral strength, emotional strength, even economic strength. If a student has given 3 attempts but has not been able to make it, now the student will also have to think, I need financial independence. I will have to be able to finance my studies or my stay when I'm not working and preparing for the exam. Without that strength, your faith is worth very little, or it will not be able to achieve the objective. So first, in the introduction, briefly explain why faith and strength both are important. Do this within 25 to 40 words. Second, now, write different points. I am writing, I think, how many have I written? 5 over here. If you were sitting for the exam, 3 to 4 points if you write, but use the right examples. Now, I am putting this in a reverse manner so that you can understand the example. You should talk about physical strength, who had it, and how it enabled them to achieve their objective. For example, first name given over here is Arunima Sinha. Who is she? She is the first Indian female amputee to climb Mount Everest. Now, to climb Mount Everest, what is the faith that she needs? The faith and the belief that she will be able to climb the mountain, highest mountain in the world. And what kind of strength will you need for this? You can say mental also, but along with that, please don't forget physical strength. Another student over here would say that, sir, instead of Arunima Sinha, can I put Dashrath Manjhi also? The answer again is right. Dashrath Manjhi is a person who again believes that he can cut through a mountain, again a mountain there also, and this will take tremendous strength for 22 years. Second, we can talk about ISRO as an organization. What is their faith? That they will be able to reach Mars. But reaching Mars is going to take them 3 to 4 decades of tremendous hard work. In between, they will meet with failures and setbacks. They will face a lot of criticism. They will be ridiculed. And to overcome all of this, what do you need? You need mental strength. Mahatma Gandhi, what is his belief? That India can win independence through non-violence, through ahimsa. And over here, what will he need? He will need moral strength, absolute conviction in his principles. People who are very close to him, people who really respect him, such as Subhash Chandra Bose, even they will part ways from him respectfully, saying that your ahimsa will not be able to defeat the British Empire. Violence to some degree will be absolutely essential. Yet, Gandhi will stay true to his principles. And it is because he stayed true to his principles that India finally will be able to secure independence. A very famous person these days, Shrikant Bola, especially after the movie was made, what is his belief? Despite suffering from visual impairment, despite being discriminated against, despite being unfairly rejected by many institutions, premier institutions of India, he still has the faith that he can achieve professional excellence and professional independence. For this, what will you need? You will need emotional strength. One failure after the other, one setback after the other, one adversity after the other, yet this man will not give up. India's very noble initiative of Vaccine Maitri, what is the faith? That India as the pharmacy of the world can vaccinate the entire world. But for this, you will need economic strength. Unless and until you have resources, economic resources, you will not be able to ensure that free vaccines can be provided to the rest of the world. We say that wealth is of no use without health. There we often forget the fact that when we say wealth is of no use without health, what does that mean? That you cannot enjoy wealth unless you are healthy. Correct? You also have to remember that without wealth, you cannot even ensure health. If I want good hospitals, if I want good equipment, if I want medicines and vaccines, there is an economic cost to it. You will need that economic strength even to launch a program such as Vaccine Maitri. And again, simple question. One, in the introduction, briefly explain what the statement means. Second, multiple points. Third, the quality of your answer will directly depend upon the quality of your example. Third statement that was given over there was by Immanuel Kant, question 3C. In law, a man is guilty when he violates the right of others. In ethics, he is guilty only if he thinks of doing so. In the introduction, what will you write? This I think everyone should be able to do. That everything that is legal might not necessarily be ethical. What we believe to be ethically right may not be permitted, may even be prohibited by law. Sometimes what the law commands us to do, what the law expects us to do by itself might not be ethically or morally correct. This much I think everyone understands. Question more importantly, and here please pay attention. Question more importantly is legal wrongs. Everyone can tell me what is an ethical wrong. An ethical wrong, for this now, what is the punishment? That you will be directly punished by the state, by the judiciary or by the government. In an ethical wrong, the only punishment is the guilt that you are likely to suffer. For any of these examples given over here, you are not violating the law. You're not breaking the law. And yet anyone will tell you that what you've done was definitely not right. In ethics, you are guilty if you only think of doing something that is wrong. Now, to start with these, from an economic dimension, what is legally wrong? Let's say we are talking about some corporation. What is legally wrong? Tax evasion. Evading the taxes, not paying the taxes that you are lawfully expected to pay. And for this, you can be strictly penalized. On the other hand, what is ethically wrong? Not tax evasion, but tax avoidance. For example, a corporation takes a huge amount of its wealth and does not park it in India. It parks it in a tax haven such as Mauritius, such as the Cayman Islands. Now here, legally what you've done might not be wrong, but ethically it is certainly questionable. On an environmental perspective, what is legally wrong? Reverse pouring. What is reverse pouring? The practice where many companies, when they don't know what to do with toxic chemicals, they dig a hole into the ground and they pump the chemicals back into the ground. You've disposed of the waste, but over a period of time, generations of people living in that region will have to suffer, will have to pay a heavy price. This is legally prohibited by law. You can be strictly punished. On the other hand, what is ethically wrong? Developing inadequate waste disposal mechanisms. If you, not that you don't have a waste disposal mechanism, it is inadequate. Since it is inadequate, a large amount of toxic waste every day is generated, but is not treated appropriately or adequately. Here, I cannot really punish you, but yes, you must feel that guilt because you are contaminating the environment around you. You are endangering the health and the safety of people living in the region. From an organizational perspective, working within a company, what is legally wrong? Sexual harassment. For this again, a person can be very strictly punished. On the other hand, what is ethically wrong? A glass ceiling. What is glass ceiling? An invisible barrier beyond which a person will not be able to rise merely because of their background. That background most commonly is your gender, which is the female gender. They face a glass ceiling. That no matter how capable a woman is, no matter how efficient, how productive, beyond a certain level in the hierarchy, she will not be able to rise for the simple reason that she is a woman. This glass ceiling can also exist on the basis of your nationality. For example, Indians who are working in the US, some student who passes out of an IIT, IIM, gets a job with a very good company working in the US. But in the US, he realizes that despite working very hard, despite earning a lot of profits for his company, he has still not been made a partner. Why? Because an invisible barrier exists, this time because of your nationality. I cannot prove it, and therefore we will say it is ethically wrong. Any person who indulges in a glass ceiling, who supports a glass ceiling, inherently must feel a tremendous amount of guilt. From a corporate point of view, what is legally wrong? Advertising for products such as alcohol, advertising for tobacco products, chewing tobacco and so on. This is legally wrong. You can be strictly punished for it. On the other hand, what is ethically wrong? Surrogate advertising. What is surrogate advertising? A very popular celebrity advertises for an alcohol brand, but does not advertise for alcohol. He advertises for soda or for mineral water that is made by the same brand. Now, technically, you're not violating the law, but on ethical grounds, the implication is very clear that you're trying to reinforce the name of the same brand in the minds of the customers so that in the future, they'll be more likely to purchase that brand of alcohol. Legally, I can't say permitted, legally not correct, not incorrect, yet ethically extremely questionable. And finally, from a bureaucratic point of view, what is legally wrong? Insubordination. You cannot refuse to obey the orders of your superiors. What is ethically wrong? Blind obedience. You are duty bound to obey your seniors, but not bound to obey them blindly. Because when you blindly start obeying them, very soon what you're doing is ethically and morally wrong. And to take a small example, although we'll just say this much over here, if you look at the Jewish Holocaust, in the Jewish Holocaust, every German soldier, every Nazi official, what they were doing was legally right, they were obeying their orders, but ethically what they were doing was extremely questionable, extremely wrong. Right? And again, the statement is easy, the examples are simple. Your challenge when you're writing the ethics paper, if you notice, we just looked at 3 questions. Unless and until you can look at different perspectives, answering the question appropriately and adequately will not really be easy. Just focus on multiple examples, multiple points, your answers will go off smoothly. Next question that we look at is question 4A. Question number 4A says that the concept of just and unjust is contextual. What was just a year back may be unjust in today's context. Changing context should be constantly under scrutiny to prevent miscarriage of justice. Examine the statement with suitable examples. Now, as far as the statement is concerned, I don't think that should be a problem for anyone. Everyone knows that what is considered right or wrong, just or unjust, moral, immoral, ethical, unethical, will always vary. It will vary depending upon time, It will vary depending upon your nationality, depending upon your culture, upon your religion, and so on. N number of factors. One factor the UPSC is asking here is time. There's only one problem in this question, which is the use of the word year. What was just a year back? And here, a doubt a person might have in their mind is, when they say a year back, should I literally take it to mean 2023, exactly 1 year back, or roughly 1 year back? Or can I say that a year back can mean the past? Honestly speaking, even I'm not sure about that. It can be either of the two interpretations. I personally would say, see, anyone who was writing this question down could have said what was just in the past, maybe unjust today. If they've said a year back, I personally would say that as much as possible, try to focus on something which is related to events that have happened in the last 1 year. I'll give you some examples for that. I'll give you some examples for the past also. If you can stick to what was just or unjust just 1 year back, that would be preferable to writing general statements about the past. For example, in the last 1 year, what has happened? Today is when I'm recording this, it is the 27th of September. If I was discussing with you about 1 year back that Israel-Palestine conflict had not started, the terrible attack by Hamas on Israel, if I remember correctly, happened on the 7th of October. Now, a year back, if you looked at the Israel-Palestine conflict, people would have said that what Israel did was just. Why? Because it was in self-defense. If someone comes and kills 1,000 of your innocent civilians, innocent citizens, it is absolutely justified to retaliate even by using force. However, 1 year later, many people have started saying that it is unjust. And why is it unjust? Because there's been a disproportionate use of force. The force should have been used to an extent that you were able to protect your citizens, but the kind of destruction that we've seen has been absolutely unprecedented, absolutely unparalleled. Can you imagine for 1 week, just 1 week, wherever you're living, if we shut down the water supply, the gas supply, the electricity supply, how difficult life would become? And now think about people living in Palestine who've been living in those conditions for almost about a year now. That's why what was just a year back today might start seeming unjust. A year back, what would have been considered just? When people were saying that we want to work from home. Across the world, whether it was the government, whether it was the private sector, it was considered just to allow people to work from home because there was a genuine fear of the virus. But today, demanding that you should be allowed to work only from home or largely from home seems unjust because we started realizing that in many sectors, it is leading to a loss of productivity. What was just a year back now might be unjust in today's context. Third, the use of artificial intelligence to collect personal data for marketing. 1 year back, most of us saw this as only harmless. I go on the internet, I search for a new phone that I want to buy. I do a little bit of a search for 10-15 minutes and then I say that I will continue it later. I log on to some social media platform, maybe Instagram, maybe Facebook, and most of the advertisements that I see there are related to phones. We knew that artificial intelligence, very well-designed algorithms are identifying my behavior and showing me those products that I'm more likely to purchase. But there we saw it as harmless. Today it is seen as unjust because we've started understanding that this violates our privacy. This is essentially manipulating us, forcing us into a particular direction that we may or may not have otherwise taken. Fourth, 1 year back, deepfakes were seen as harmless. It was justified even if people, what were we using deepfakes for? Largely entertainment. Make a small video, morph it a little bit, and it was largely seen as harmless fun, harmless entertainment. Today, on the other hand, we started realizing that the same deepfakes are being used to spread very deep levels of misinformation. And now, many people believe that it is absolutely unjust. It needs to be controlled. It needs to be regulated. And fifth, finally, 1 year back, cryptocurrency was seen as just because it was merely an alternative payment mechanism. Today, a lot of people have concerns regarding cryptocurrency because of the environmental impact of crypto mining. The amount of energy that is required, electricity that is required is abnormally high. which is why many people believe that mining for cryptocurrency now has become unjust. What was just 1 year back now has started seeming unjust, and this undoubtedly will lead to a miscarriage of justice. That's the first way you can interpret it. I personally would advise that if they are using the word just a year back, you please talk about events that have happened in the last 1 year. But students will say that, sir, maybe we cannot remember all of this. In that case, what can we write? In that case, you can take a more liberal interpretation, a more easy interpretation. Now you can say that a year back means the past, and today, of course, is the present. And now the examples, you can give dozens of examples here, you won't really have to bother much. Sati in the past was considered just, today is considered unjust. Slavery in a country like the US in the past was considered just, now is considered unjust. Apartheid in South Africa at one time was considered just, today is considered absolutely unjust. Punishment for homosexuality, section 377, in the past was considered just, today is considered unjust. That's why it's been repealed. Child marriage in the past, in fact in some parts of the world even today, is considered just, but most people today believe that it is unjust. If you take a liberal interpretation, the statements and the examples will be very easy to give. However, do this only if you cannot think of more content. At least 2 or 3. I personally would say, I know that sitting in an exam hall with that kind of pressure, you might not be able to develop so many points. So at least 2 points which have happened in the last 1 year and 2-3 points that are from the past, I think your answer should take a satisfactory shape. That's your question number 4A. Question 5A, and that's why I said the paper this year was little general. Question 5A says that a code of conduct and a code of ethics are sources of guidance in public administration. There's a code of conduct already in operation, whereas a code of ethics is not yet put in place. Suggest a suitable model for a code of ethics to maintain integrity, probity, and transparency in governance. Now, first part of your answer, suggesting the model code of conduct will be very easy. But first, briefly, and this will take about 30 to 50 words, roughly 50 words. First, explain what is a code of ethics and what is the purpose of a code of ethics. A code of conduct is a set of principles that are very specific, that affect your behavior, the way you behave. A code of ethics, on the other hand, are not specific. These are general principles that guide rather than dictate your behavior. To take a small example, from the Constitution, we have the fundamental rights and we have the fundamental duties. The fundamental rights are absolutely specific. If your rights are violated, you can immediately approach the judiciary. Fundamental duties, on the other hand, are general principles that guide, that don't dictate your behavior. If I say it is the duty of every citizen of India to respect the national flag, how you respect the national flag, a code of ethics will not be able to tell you. It is a principle, but it is general, it is vague. Second, these principles are social or moral in nature, which is why they tend to be a little abstract. A code of ethics can tell you what you are supposed to be doing. It cannot tell you how you are supposed to do it. You must respect the national flag, but how you respect the national flag? Each time that I see the flag, should I stand at attention? Should I salute the flag? Should I place my hand over my heart? What should I do? That a code of ethics will not be able to tell you. It is relatively abstract. And since it is abstract, number 3, it is difficult to punish someone even if they violate a code of ethics, because we cannot identify your violation itself. Now that's a code of ethics, general guidelines that are not easy to enforce. Question then is, if they are general guidelines, if they are not easy to enforce, then why do we need a code of ethics? For bureaucrats in India, we already have a code of conduct, your All India Services Conduct Rules. So why do we need a code of ethics? We need a code of ethics to clarify and to reinforce the fundamental expectations from a civil servant. Ask a student sitting in a class, on average, ask a student randomly, what are the 3 top duties of a civil servant? Many of them will not be able to give you a convincing answer. To help them develop that convincing answer and to remember what they are supposed to do as a civil servant, you will need to institute a code of ethics. Number 2, help them and encourage them to aspire to higher ideals. What is a higher ideal? The values that will be beneficial for the individual, for the society, as well as for the country. And what kind of values are these? Difficult values. Number 1, honesty and integrity. Number 2, courage and sacrifice. Number 3, dedication and determination. Number 4, and so on. Encourage them, help them, motivate them to aspire to higher ideals. And number 3, when you reinforce a code of ethics, this will ensure consistency in their thoughts and actions. Whatever I've said over here, if you're writing the answer briefly in about 30 to 50 words, this would become your introduction. Now the question says, suggest a suitable model for a code of ethics. Now if we suggest a suitable model, in a code of ethics, what do we want? That number 1, the principles should be general, should be wide, should have a comprehensive coverage. Number 2, they should focus on areas that are not easy to enforce. For example, if I say, should civil servants accept gifts from the public? If we say, should civil servants accept gifts, that will be covered in a code of conduct. That yes, you can take gifts, but the value of a gift should not be more than 5,000. Now, if it is more than 5,000, I can identify that you've done something wrong. I can immediately punish you. A code of ethics should focus on those areas that are general, that are abstract, which are not easy to enforce. So here now, this answer can take n number of forms. One form, how do we enforce a code of ethics, or what model can you give for it? Let's say I take 6 elements. Your expectations, your understanding, your perception regarding the Constitution, your professional duties and obligation, your relationship with your superiors, public dealings or public interactions, use of social media, and ethics training and review as a code of ethics. In each of these now, I have written 6 points here. If you're writing the exam, even if you've written 4 or 5, your answer would still be considered good. Under each of them, briefly mention 2 points each. For example, for the Constitution, in a code of ethics, what will we tell civil servants? That they must understand and uphold the spirit of the Constitution. The letter they will be taught in the academies. The letter the judiciary is there to enforce. More importantly, understand the spirit of the Constitution. Number 2, make constitutional principles the bedrock of all your decisions. Anywhere that you're confused, what you should or should not do, your constitutional principles should always come to your mind. Any decision that is in violation of the Constitution necessarily should be taken as wrong. Third, do not misuse Constitution safeguards. You have the legal right to do it, but do not misuse them. For example, Article 311, do not misuse it to try and escape justice if you as a bureaucrat have done something wrong. That is what we'll write under the Constitution. In professional duties and obligations, what do we write? That number 1, under all circumstances, duty comes first. And here, don't make the mistake of thinking that I have a duty towards my family also. I have a duty towards my children also. I have certain duties towards myself. We understand all of that. But when we say duty, we are talking about your professional duties. Given a choice between your country on the one hand and any other parameter, it is always the country that should take first priority. And number 2, remember that to do your duties, sacrifice is an integral part of duty. Whether you have some duties as a student, as a parent, as a brother or a sister, as a bureaucrat tomorrow, somewhere or the other we will have to make sacrifices without which we cannot effectively perform our duties. Now, if you put this in a code of ethics and if you reinforce that code, people start understanding that in some circumstances, escaping sacrifice will not be easy. Third, your relationship with your superiors. Here, what do we tell them? That number 1, with your superiors, you are expected to obey them, but not at the cost of your judgment, your intelligence, most importantly, your self-respect and your dignity. So here, what do we tell them? That number 1, you work with, not beneath your superiors. They are giving you orders because they have more experience, because they know the government and it's working better, but that does not mean that they have the right to ill-treat you. Number 2, that you serve the office, not the person who occupies that office. And that office always works for the well-being of the people. Number 3, that you're duty-bound to obey your orders, but not to obey the orders blindly. You have to use your judgment, you have to use your wisdom. Fourth, public dealings and interactions. Remember that the public is the master. So when you're dealing with them, there should be an element of courtesy. You should be empathetic towards them. You should be genuinely concerned with the problems that they're bringing to you. Second, that you should have a problem-solving attitude. Don't tell us the problems. because we already know the problems, we are looking for a solution. So don't tell us, for any problem that the people get to you, don't tell them that there are too many people. Don't tell them we have very little manpower. Don't say that India has the largest population. We already know that. You please focus on a problem solving attitude. What can you do to ensure that we are able to solve the problem? Move beyond, focus on problem solving rather than only procedural compliance. Third, ensure that you have a designated time for public interactions. Once in a day, once in a week, once in every 3 weeks. There should be a defined time when people can come and speak with you. And please remember, all of this still will depend upon the discretion of the bureaucrat. Yet we are at least helping them understand what fundamentally we expect from them. Fifth, your use of social media. Now, should bureaucrats use social media? Answer without hesitation should be yes. Why? Because you use it to share information. You use it for grievance redressal. Social media is a very effective way through which you can reach out to thousands and lakhs of people instantly. It is also a mechanism through which people can convey their problems, their suggestions, their grievances to you. However, it should be used for information dissemination, not for personal glorification. What personal glorification means, let me not go any deeper because it will become a little critical, but use it more for information dissemination, not to acquire a cult status for yourself. And finally, ethics training and review. Establish an ethics commission. Number 2, regular ethics training. During the ethics training, focus on trainee participation. It is not the trainer, the mentor, the teacher who should do most of the work. The work should come from the trainees so that they understand the different nuances of any situation. What are the ethical parameters in those situations? And third, a designated ethics commissioner in every department, in every ministry, in every state, that we don't need to specify, that the government can decide, to monitor progress and to review complaints or suggestions. The framework is easy. How you'll put it, someone will put these 6 points, someone will change a couple of points here or there. But broadly, in a code of ethics, the statements that you're giving, number 1, should be general. Number 2, not easy to enforce. Number 3, should affect a person's thinking and attitude rather than only their behavior. That's your question 5A. Question 5B. Question 5B says, simple factual question, like I said, general information, general newspaper reading, and these kind of questions would not really be difficult to answer. The soul of the new law, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, is justice, equality and impartiality based on Indian cultural ethos. Discuss this in the light of a major shift from a doctrine of punishment to justice in the present judicial system. Now, to a large extent, the statement is also correct, because the BNS marks a radical shift from the earlier intention of largely finding fault to now actually focusing on justice and reformation. 3 or 4 points you need to write here. Number 1, how does it focus on justice, justice rather than only punishment? Because it focuses on rehabilitation and reform, especially for first-time offenders and for minor offenders. For example, now, if a person is found guilty of petty theft, what is petty theft? A person was walking somewhere, let's say at a railway station, he picked up a sandwich and walked away. Someone caught him and he was arrested for that. It's a petty theft. The worth of the sandwich might be 20 rupees. Earlier, this person could have been put behind bars in jail. Now, the punishment is community service. So that you feel a little bit of shame, so that you understand that what you did was wrong, and you realize that in the future, this is the first time offender, in the future you can be punished more severely. If you do something wrong, you can be caught. But the intention here is not punishment. Intention, more importantly, is reformation. Second, decriminalizes certain offences. For example, adultery, section 497 of the IPC, is no longer an offence. The statement says, based on Indian culture and ethos. What is Indian culture and ethos? That in India, women have always been given a status comparable to men, in some cases, a status superior to men. However, in modern Indian society, very often, we seem to forget that fact. Section 497, in fact, let me just write this over here. Where does 497 come from, or these kind of laws come from? These kind of laws, section 497, section 377 of the IPC, homosexuality, these are what we call Victorian morality. And Victorian morality is, of course, not Indian. This is something that was enforced upon us by the British. What is the Victorian morality? That a man's worth is determined by the control that he has over his wife, especially the wife's body. When the Supreme Court struck down Section 497, it said that we are striking it down because it treats women as chattel, as property of the husband. The Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, again, Indian culture, Indian ethos, equality between the genders, decriminalizes this offense. Third, the BNS aligns with recent progressive laws. For example, the Mental Healthcare Act of 2017 says that a person who attempts to commit suicide, who wants to commit suicide, thinks of committing suicide, is a person who does not deserve to be punished. Such a person deserves treatment. Such a person deserves counseling. Such a person deserves to be taken care of. A person who is going through such a difficult mental time that he or she wants to end their own life does not deserve to be punished further by the state. And yet in the past, what was the IPC doing? The IPC, Section 309, made it an offense for a person to attempt suicide. It was the same section because it punished you only if you only if you failed in committing the offense. Why, you can think about later. But again, when the BNS deletes Section 309, it aligns with progressive new laws such as the Mental Healthcare Act of 2017. Fourth, why do we say that it moves towards justice rather than punishment? Because number 4, it eliminates certain biases that have existed from colonial times. For example, the omission of thugs. Thuggy was a major problem that India faced in the 19th century. Yet, by making this a provision of the law in the IPC, the Indian Penal Code was attaching stereotypes that unfairly labeled entire communities, entire tribes as criminals. We can say that within a particular tribe, there's a larger concentration of criminals, but we cannot say that everyone who has a certain name or a certain surname necessarily should be labeled as a thug or should be labeled as a criminal. These biases have been eliminated in the BNS. And fifth, finally, it prioritizes human rights and the dignity of the individual, moving away from the punitive mindset. What is punitive? Aimed at punishment. Punitive mindset of the IPC. For example, it does not include any punishment for homosexuality, which was earlier included in Section 377 of the IPC. Simple question, not really difficult, but again, a question that is not directly based upon your syllabus. It will largely come from your understanding or your reading of the newspapers. Nonetheless, question number 5B. Question 6A was a very simple, very factual, very straightforward question. The question said, in the Indian culture and value system, equal opportunity has been provided irrespective of gender identity. The number of women in public service has been steadily increasing over the years. Examine the gender-specific challenges faced by female civil servants. Suggest suitable measures to increase their efficiency and maintaining high standards of probity. So very simply, you will divide your answer into 3 parts. First, tell us what are the challenges. Second, how to increase efficiency. Third, how to promote probity. And since there are 3 parts, 150 words, I personally would say under each part, write 5 points. I might write 7 over here. You write 5 points down, and that should make a good answer. What are gender-specific challenges faced by female civil servants? Number 1, gender stereotyping. That women often will prioritize their family and their domestic responsibilities over their work. As a result, what will happen? If there is an important assignment or a critical assignment, probably the woman would not be chosen for the appointment, even if she is ideally suited to do that work. Number 2, work-life balance, because unpaid domestic household work is often attributed only to women. In a society like India, which even today is largely patriarchal, it is not common, it is not frequent to see the male in the house or the male in a family to willingly and voluntarily accept unpaid domestic household work. As a result of which, for many civil servants, female civil servants, balancing their work along with their family lives becomes little difficult. Third, what should I say, an experience that only women will have to go through, which is maternity. By God's grace, most people will never have to see the inside of a hospital. Most men will never have to see the inside of a hospital till they are in their 50s or their 60s or even later. But women will invariably have to go to a hospital if for no other illness, no other disease, at least at the time of maternity. And during that period of time, there's a forced absence from work. And when there's a forced absence of work, what does that cause? Career stagnation. Again, gender-specific challenges. Fourth, sexual harassment at the workplace from colleagues, sometimes even from the public. Number 5, safety during field work, especially when we are sending you to remote areas, to inaccessible areas. There, the safety of the women becomes a concern. Number 6, like we were saying earlier also, glass ceiling. Fact of the matter is that till date, we are talking about female public servants. As far as public servants are concerned, India has never had a female cabinet secretary or a female chief justice of India. Why? Because there's a glass ceiling. Number 7, patriarchal attitudes which make it difficult to earn respect and even obedience. I don't know who you are watching this video, but tomorrow when you join the bureaucracy, let's say you get into a service like the police, a young boy who's joining the IPS, getting his first posting, let's say 27, 28 years old, when a male subordinate, a male constable sees you, high probability he'll salute you very smartly. He'll give you the respect. But the same male constable, with equal sincerity, equal happiness, might not be willing to give that salute to a female officer. Only because of a gender, only because of that patriarchal attitude. And this is not something I am saying. This is something Kiran Bedi has said repeatedly. That for a female, earning the respect and the obedience of her subordinates is significantly more difficult as compared to a male colleague. And finally, lack of gender-sensitive policies. Most commonly, what form does this take? For example, with regard to maternity leave, paid maternity leave, period of the leave, whether you'll be disturbed during the leave, washrooms, which even the Chief Justice of India said that in many courts across the country, not the Supreme Court, not high courts, but in many district courts, we do not have a separate toilet for lawyers as well as for the clients who come over there. Some challenges which are specifically related to the gender. Now, what measures will you suggest to improve the efficiency of females or female public servants? Number 1, flexible working hours and remote working options. What does that do? Ensures their safety and maintains a work-life balance. Number 2, childcare facilities on site. Wherever they're working, childcare facilities, for example, if there are female constables in an all-women police station, please have a small creche so that the females who are coming there, younger females who have small children, can get their children there, leave them with a peace of mind that the children are safe and taken care of and can focus on their work. And where that is not possible on site, at least subsidize it. Third, maternity, more importantly, paternity leave provisions, so that not only the mother, even the father can take leave whenever they have a child. What is the advantage? That this will distribute the responsibility of childcare upon both the genders and prevent the career stagnation of only one. I think even today many people will find it surprising if a person says that I am going on leave for 1 month. If a man says I'm going on leave for 1 month because we've recently had a child, they will ask that if you had a child, why do you need to take leave? Because the responsibility should be shared by both. Fourth, merit-based promotions, objective performance. What are merit-based promotions? Where the performance indicators are objective, the subjectivity of your senior, of your superior in assessing you, as far as possible should be minimized. Fifth, gender diverse bodies. What are gender diverse bodies? This could be advisory boards, this could be commissions, this could be committees, this could be a board that is deciding on your transfer or your promotion. What will this do? This will promote gender parity and this will promote better morale. And finally, affirmative action, higher representation of women, especially in leadership roles, and this hopefully would also help in preventing a glass ceiling. How many points here? 6. You write only 5. And the third part of your answer here, very factual, very simple answer. Third part of your answer over here, what measures will you suggest to maintain probity? Now, specifically for female civil servants, it is difficult to distinguish between the two, yet a couple of points we can write. Number 1, promote female role models. What does that do? Builds conviction and confidence. Number 2, gender neutral performance indicators. What is the advantage? This will prevent nepotism. It will ensure gender parity. It will discourage corruption as a tool for career advancement. That if I want to succeed, I will have to do something wrong. Only then will I be able to get the assessment or the performance appraisal that I want. Third, anonymous mechanisms for reporting any form of harassment. Why anonymous? Because it reduces vulnerability to unwelcome advances. It reduces the fear of retaliation. Whenever I make a complaint, if it is mandatory for me to share my details, my name, my designation, my organization, there is always the possibility that number 1, in the future, there is a fear of retaliation. Number 2, that there is a fear of unwelcome advances, that people will use that information more for gossip, more for rumors, rather than only focusing on the offense or the crime that has been committed. Fourth, regular ethics training. This is for both the genders. And number 5, strong gender neutral accountability mechanisms. 3 parts or 3 different elements they had asked in the same question. Break up the answer into 3 parts. Under each of them, write 5 points briefly, and your answer will take shape. And the final question that was given in section A was question 6B, which is talking about Mission Karam Yogi. The question I will not really get in over there. How will it help empower civil servants in enhancing productive efficiency and delivering services at the grassroots level? Number 1, what is Mission Karam Yogi? It is a, what should I say, it is a vision of the Prime Minister to focus on capacity building in a manner that genuinely creates competent civil servants. And fundamentally, Karam Yogi focuses on changing the mindset of government servants. In the past, in Hindi, you ask a person working in the government, what will they say? They will say that I'm a Sarkari Karamchari. What is a Karamchari? Just a worker. But here, you're not only a worker, you're actually seeing yourself as a yogi. A person who's invested in the work, a person who understands the higher spiritual plane at which you're operating, so that you excel in your work, you find happiness in your work, and you also deliver through the work that you're doing. Now, how will Karam Yogi enhance productive efficiency? Number 1, because it focuses on training, which shifts from rule-based to role-based training. What is rule-based training? That everyone will get the same training. Whoever you are, whether you are a person who lived in rural or urban India, whether you are a person, now you are training here as bureaucrats, whether you're a person who comes from a science background or an arts background, whether you're a person who's physically fit or unfit, whether you're afraid of heights or comfortable with heights, whoever you are, rule-based training means that the same training will be provided to everyone. What is role-based training? Role-based training is according to the individual officer's specific needs and specific role. So the training that I will give to a person who comes from a rural background will be different from the training that I'll give. Minor differences, not completely. Minor differences compared to a person who comes from an urban background. What different? We say that there's a difference between India and Bharat. So one person needs to understand what that Bharat is. Another person equally will have to understand what that new India seems to be like. Second, competency driven training. What is competency? The combination of your attitude, skills and knowledge. Acronym they use is ASK. Attitude, skills and knowledge that enable an individual to perform their task successfully. And here we are seeking not only to equip you with knowledge, but more importantly, something that enables you to do your work. In class, this is what we call the difference between efficiency on the one hand and effectiveness on the other. Efficiency is what you're capable of doing. Effectiveness is what you actually do. And here we are trying to improve your effectiveness. Third, continuous lifelong learning for all officials across all hierarchies. Number 4, yes, this is a term that will earn you marks in the exam. The 70-20-10 mandate. What is 70-20-10? That 70% of your learning should be from the job experience. 20% of your learnings should be from your peers, people who are working along with you. 10% of your learning should be from formal, pre-organized, planned training. This will lead to inward efficiency, and that efficiency invariably will also increase your productivity. In India, unfortunately, this learning from the job is something that people start doing at a much later time, much later phase in their career. The earlier you focus on this, the higher the probability that people will be able to increase their productivity. And fifth, finally, an unbiased evaluation system so that we can provide feedback to not only monitor them but also improve their performance in the future. Simultaneously, how will this improve delivery of services at the grassroots level? Simple answer, number one, because when you provide competency training, this will enable you to move beyond silos in the government. What are silos? Watertight and separate compartments that each department, each ministry is functioning on its own. If the PWD department says that we want to build a new road, they need to coordinate with the electricity department, with the water department, the water pipelines, and let's say the forest department. But each department has its own rules and regulations which they follow very strictly. As a result of which, work that could have been completed in, let's say, 3 months' time will end up taking 1.5 years. Why? Because coordinating with different departments and getting the permissions will be excessively lengthy. So here, what do we recommend? Move beyond the silos, encourage collaboration across departments, promoting joint efforts in solving issues at the grassroots. Do not focus only upon existing procedures. You try to find the solution. Number two, when people are better trained, when you have Mission Karma Yogi, there you will have a citizen-centric approach. Every government official will focus on people first. And when they focus on people first, this will urge the officials to understand the local needs and provide tailored responses. Not a one-size-fits-all approach, but something that is beneficial for that particular environment, for those particular people. Third, time-bound delivery of services, because officers are trained. We said earlier that we are focusing on your rule-based to role-based. Since we are focusing on training you according to the role, the officer who has been posted to a particular area is best trained to provide those services. Fourth, proactive and polite government servants, where they promote citizen satisfaction, maintain citizen dignity, and this will lead to greater citizen participation in the future. And fifth, finally, imaginative and creative, innovative government officials who do not complain about problems, who do not repeat the problems, but rather try to find solutions, new solutions to persistent problems. And if you do that, then the delivery of services at the grassroots level should also improve. These are the questions from section A. Section B are your case studies. Out of these case studies, 3 I will be taking up and 3 Mr. Pathak will discuss with you. Case number 7, 8, 9 I will discuss. 10, 11, 12 Mr. Pathak will take up. Case number 7 is this one here. Not a very lengthy case study, simple fact. Only problem in this case was it had 4 questions. So you have to finish off reading the case, you have to write the answers quickly, and as far as possible be precise, write within the word limit so that you can complete the paper in time. Now, question number 7 says that there is a corporation called ABC Incorporated. It is the second largest tech company in the world. It is situated in the third world. You are the CEO and the majority shareholder of this company. Now, at the moment, the biggest worry facing this company, and where is the worry coming from? Environmental activists, regulating authorities and the people, is the environmental footprint of this company. In the recent past, this company has started using more and more AI-powered services, as a result of which their environmental footprint has increased. It has gone up. If they compare 2023 with 2019, there has been an increase of 48% in their greenhouse gas emissions, which is a very large number. Now, why are they using this? Because AI-powered services need more electrical energy, notwithstanding their notable gains. Now, let me highlight this part over here. Since it says notwithstanding their notable gains, please remember, under any circumstance, you will not say that AI-powered services should be discontinued. Why? Because they have told you that the gains are substantial. If you're gaining, but along with that you're facing some problems, find a solution for the problem. Do not undo, do not wipe away the gains and the benefits that you're getting. The goal is to achieve net zero emissions by 2030, but lowering emissions seems to be difficult because again, the integration of AI into the company is increasing. One option that we have, in fact, they've given the answer in the question itself. You can use renewable energy, but this will require substantial investment. The environment is very competitive. Innovation is very important to ensure not only the survival of the company, but also the well-being of the investors and the shareholders. And finally, it says that you must try to maintain a balance between innovation, profitability, and sustainability. And this should be in line with business objectives and ethical obligations. If you look at this case, and that's why we tell the students, case studies are lengthy. When you're reading a case study, please keep a pen or a pencil in your hand. Underline any part that you believe is important. Now, if you look at this case over here, what is the main problem? Increasing environmental footprint. Why is that happening? Because AI-powered services use more electrical energy. Over here, AI-powered services, are they good for you? Yes, there are notable gains. Which is why, where is the answer for this? Over here, that instead of using greenhouse gases, you can shift towards renewable energy. Only problem is that this will require a lot of investment. Where is the word investment given? I can't find it. But this will require, right here, substantial investment. And when you are taking any decision, your fundamental benchmark is also given in the case itself. Innovation, profitability, and sustainability. Innovation we've already got with regard to AI. Profitability, it is already generating notable gains. All you need is sustainability. That will come from renewable energy. Your answer is contained in the question itself. That's why I said nothing difficult. Lengthy, but not difficult. Now, there are 4 questions given in this case. Question 1 says, in a case like this, what is your immediate response? You are the CEO, you are the largest shareholder. What is your immediate response? Make the integration of AI more sustainable. In one simple sentence. And now write 2-3 points also after this. How will you make it sustainable? Number 1, as far as now we want to make AI more sustainable, not do away with AI. So first, from the environmental point of view, reduce reliance on greenhouse gases and increase the use of renewable sources of energy. With renewable sources of energy, the problem is increasing costs. The cost will increase. So here, what will you write? That we can always depend upon economies of scale. As we start using more and more renewable sources, as we invest more in the research and development, as more companies, more organizations start using renewable sources of energy, the economies of scale will kick in, and the cost also will start declining, will become more affordable. And for this, when we need more companies to collaborate, we will need inter-organizational collaboration. Where this is not possible, or in the time that it is not possible. Now, ABC is the second largest tech company in the world, must be affecting and must be influencing a lot of people. Which is why, if that is not possible in the meantime, we can recommend crowdfunding for adopting renewable energy, or we can also approach the government to subsidize any such initiative. Third, to maintain competitiveness, what do? Artificial intelligence is absolutely vital. We cannot do away with that. However, we can improve its energy efficiency. And number 2, you should view the spending on the innovation as an investment, not just as a cost. Because this is building the platform for a sustainable future tomorrow. And fourth, finally, sustainability. For that, very simply, reduce your environmental footprint. How do you do that? Point number 2, by adopting renewable energy. First part of your answer, what is your immediate response? That we will not do away with AI. We will just make the use of AI more sustainable. Question number 2, discuss the ethical issues involved in the case. What is an ethical issue? The violation of a principle, the violation of a right, the violation of a value, and so on. So over here, 3 broad issues we identify. Number 1, detrimental impact on the environment. Even if you have an innovation, the impact of the innovation, the detrimental impact on the environment should not become irreversible. To some extent, we say that science never solves a problem without creating 10 more. We understand that. But these 10 new problems also we'll solve in the future. But that does not mean that the impact should be so detrimental that we cannot reverse it anymore. And number 2, economic considerations should not jeopardize our survival. Because our survival is directly linked with the environment. Second, a threat to the survival and the competitiveness of ABC Incorporation. Number one, if ABC Incorporated is not able to survive, they are receiving warnings, they are likely to be penalized also. If you punish ABC very strictly, they are the second largest company, this will have a cascading impact on the entire industry. Not just ABC, other corporations also in the future will be extremely reluctant, extremely hesitant to innovate and to use AI-powered services. And number two, the social cost in terms of job losses, in terms of investor wealth, in terms of ancillary industries, the supporting industries which are helping ABC. That's the ethical issue. Third, a stagnation in innovations in the entire tech industry. Because they are the second largest, whatever they do will set the precedent for other companies. So here it is important to remember that artificial intelligence is vital to maintain innovation and scalability. And number two, human effort will increase and the pace of reforms will slow down. Which is why these factors you must keep in mind before you take any decision or before you decide to punish ABC. Third question that was asked over here was that your company has been identified to be penalized by tech giants. What logical and ethical arguments will you put forth to convince about the necessity of continuing with AI with your innovations? So three arguments we give here. Number one, if I am the representative of or the CEO of ABC and someone asks me why should you not be punished, I would say that innovation is the key and AI is the key to the future. AI is the key to innovation. Why is artificial intelligence the key to innovation? Because it increases efficiency and productivity, reduces human error. Number two, it lowers operational cost. Number three, data-driven, evidence-based decision making. Number four, scalability and adaptability. That's why you should not work or you should not criticize artificial intelligence-based services. Number two, second argument, that the science of today is the technology of tomorrow. You cannot stop progress because of teething troubles. What are teething troubles? Any difficulty that we face when we introduce a new technology or when we introduce a new innovation. Now, one of the deadliest diseases in the world was cancer. To deal with cancer, we developed chemotherapy. But we realized very soon that chemotherapy was also killing a lot of healthy cells in a human body. But that does not mean that we will stop chemotherapy, because cancer as a problem still remains. So what do we develop? We develop targeted chemotherapy or proton therapy. Find a solution to the problem. You do not do away with the entire innovation itself. Just because of teething troubles, we cannot stop progress. And number two, we need innovation to reduce the environmental impact. In fact, that innovation will also be helped by AI itself. Third, you need collaboration, not criticism. Any company that is trying to criticize ABC today must remember that they could be in the same position tomorrow. Number two, if we pool our resources and if we pool our funds, we should be able to develop sustainable solutions. And number three, nobody should act as a free rider. Who's a free rider? A person who wants the advantage of the innovation, the advantage of a progress, but is not willing to do his or her responsibilities, her duties. If you want that artificial intelligence should become more energy efficient, every company, every organization will have to play their role. So some arguments that we'll give them. And fourth, finally, a very factual question where it's difficult to say how a student studying ethics is supposed to prepare for this. Being a conscientious being, what measures would you adopt to maintain a balance between AI innovation and environmental footprint? Absolutely factual. I think this will come more from your science and tech studies than from anything that can be part of your ethics syllabus. Number one, smaller, optimized AI models. Now, why? Because they can maintain performance with reduced energy usage. Number two, energy efficient algorithms. What is the advantage here? They converge faster. They require fewer computing resources. Third, green computing infrastructure. What is green computing infrastructure? For example, advanced cooling systems. For example, making AI facilities in colder climates so that it can reduce the cooling cost. Number four, carbon neutral AI, where you can offset your carbon emissions by purchasing carbon credits. And fifth, collaborative AI research. But 5 points written over here. The part that I've written in blue, I don't think you'll have the word limit to write that, but briefly explain these points also. And like I said, out of these four, last two questions, how directly they're connected to ethics is a little difficult. What ethical dimension or what ethical thinking a student has would be a little difficult to evaluate from here. Nonetheless, that was question number 7. Question number 8 is that question which was based on unemployed youth in a state being targeted by a terror organization by using social media. Case says there's a person called Raman, senior IPS officer, recently posted as Director General of Police for a given state. In this state, the recruitment of unemployed youth by an unknown terrorist group has become a matter of concern. In this state, unemployment was relatively high. Unemployment among graduates and those with higher education was even more grave, as a result of which these people became vulnerable and soft targets for these terrorist groups. A person has completed a higher education, is struggling to find a job, has invested a lot of money, a lot of time in their education, and even today is not able to get gainful employment. Exploiting their vulnerabilities, exploiting their anxiety, their helplessness becomes relatively easy. And what are they doing? The terror group is targeting these young unemployed people, and they're targeting them particularly from a particular community. Now, the state CID and the cyber cell have said that a lot of these youth have been contacted by the terror group by using social media and local communal organizations. The case says that the need of the hour is to act swiftly and to check these designs before they become serious. Problem is that a lot of these youth are actively engaged on social media such as Facebook, Instagram. They spend 6 to 8 hours every day on social media. In the recent past, they've started displaying a lot of sympathy and endorsing messages received from the contacts of the global terrorist group. They are hypercritical of government policies. They're forwarding anti-national tweets on their WhatsApp and so on. This is your case over here. Now, here, the first question that is asked is, in a case like this, what are the options that are available? To cope with the situation, what can you do? First, the understanding, and then you'll make the table there. Number 1, address the cause, not just the symptom. What is the cause? The cause over here, number 1, is unemployment. And number 2 is that the youth do not see any hope in their future. What is the symptom? The symptom is they are getting attracted towards or getting manipulated by this terrorist group. Focus on the cause, not just the symptom. If you just look at the fact that they have been targeted easily by the terror group, what will you do? You as a police officer will start arresting the youth, will start punishing them. What will happen? This will only drive them underground, and that will make future action more difficult. Rather than in class, when we're discussing something, some question I'll ask the students, they immediately, if I tell them someone has done something wrong, what will you do? Their first reaction invariably is punishment. Punishment should be your last resort, because the moment you start punishing, the scope for finding a middle ground, the scope for negotiation, the scope for mediation immediately and drastically declines. Similarly over here, do not punish the youth. First start by addressing the cause, which is the unemployment, which is forcing or compelling the youth to get manipulated by the terror groups. So here, what will you say? What are the options? Number 1, strict action against the errant youth, against the wrong youth. Merit, it curbs anti-national activities. And number 2, it restricts the growth of terror organizations. Problem is that this will fuel resentment against the government, lead to a loss of public trust in the government, and number 2, will drive the youth underground. In the future also, they will engage in these activities, but now they will do it more carefully, where tracking them, identifying them, arresting them will become even more difficult. Second option that you have is gainful employment for gainful opportunities for the youth. Merit, it incentivizes lawful activities. Number 2, disincentivizes anti-government sentiment, anti-national sentiment. Please remember what the government does for us. Regardless of many problems that we still have, what the government does for us is unparalleled. Every country will have problems, will take time to develop and progress, and in that time it is our duty to cooperate and to at least stay patient. We certainly cannot do something that goes against the country. And third, it creates a positive hope for the future. Demerit is, I want to generate opportunities. Demerit is that number one, it will take a lot of effort, a lot of time. Number two, opportunities cannot be created. I think that part has got cut out. Cannot be granted without appropriate skills and without an enabling ecosystem. Even if I want to generate opportunities for the youth, number one, the youth need to be skilled. Number two, I need industries. Number three, I need the industries to be producing something that has a market. This ecosystem will not be created immediately and instantly. So that is the demerit over there. Second, now these are the options that are available to you. Second question asks, what are the measures to ensure that such groups do not penetrate and vitiate the atmosphere in the state? This again, like I said, is relatively easy. Number one, they're using social media, and we were talking about artificial intelligence earlier. So AI-based content moderation. Number two, reporting mechanisms that are easy to access, easy to use. Whenever a user notices something suspicious, notices something that is violent, that is extremist, they should be able to report this easily, anonymously, without their own safety being compromised. Third, digital media literacy, so that the youth can identify misinformation, manipulation tactics, hate speech, and so on. Fourth, developing counter-extremist content. If they are trying to mislead the youth by telling them everything or even the smallest of things that the government was not able to do, the government simultaneously should make positive and engaging content which reinforces faith and respect in the government as well as in the country. Fourth, AI-driven surveillance of extremist networks. Fifth, very importantly, early warning systems. Use artificial intelligence to develop predictive models so that we can flag what is the trend or what is the pattern on the basis of which they target certain people. Identify behavioral patterns common to these people, to the youth who've been targeted, and use that in the future for early detection and for early prevention. And seventh, finally, anti-radicalization laws which the legislature can make so that any person who tries to use terror-related information, misinformation, manipulation, they can be strictly punished. 7 points written here, write about 5, answer should be done. And like I said, very factual, very straightforward. Third, action plan to enhance the intelligence gathering mechanism of the police. Again, about 4 to 5 points over here. Adopt advanced surveillance tools, predictive analytics, digital forensics, crowdsourcing intelligence, yes, very important. Strengthen community policing, coordinate with the people, and improve interagency and international cooperation. If you write about 5 of these, briefly explain them, even that should be done. Not a very insightful question as such, largely factual. And one last case study let me discuss here with you, which is case number 9. Case number 9 says that there's a person called Rohit. He is posted as an SP Special Operations in some state for the last 1 year. The district where he is posted is Naxalite affected. In the district, the government has undertaken in the past, a lot of development works to win the hearts and the minds of the people. Now, Rohit has established an excellent intelligence network and so on. Now, let me get to the core of the case. In one of the cordon and search operations that Rohit was conducted, he got to know that 10, not Naxalites, hardcore Naxalites were hiding in a particular village with sophisticated weapons. Rohit and his force went there. They were able to overpower all the Naxalites. Problem was that 500 tribal women surrounded the village and started marching towards the target house. They were demanding the immediate release of the insurgents. Why? Because they're the protectors and saviors. These women were extremely agitated and aggressive. Now at this point, Rohit tried to contact his superior officer, IG Special Operations, but was not able to do that because of poor connectivity. He's in a dilemma because out of these 10 people that they've arrested, or they've at least overpowered, 2 were hardcore top insurgents with a prize money of 10 lakh rupees on their heads, and these 2 had also been involved in a recent ambush on security forces. If Rohit wants, now he has force with him, if he wants, he can use force, he can fire at the women but this will probably lead to a loss of public lives and will further complicate the situation. Now, that's your case over here. Now, in this case, it is slightly better than the previous one. In this case, the first thing that you need to understand is the difference between right and wrong. You have not arrested or you have not held 10 insurgents. They are saying hardcore Naxalites. These hardcore Naxalites have some very sophisticated weapons. 2 of them were absolutely hardcore. There's a bounty on their head and they've recently ambushed our security forces. So simple question over here is, should these people be released? The answer is no. But at the same time, these 500 women are not your enemies. They are your citizens. They are agitated, they are aggressive. I'm sure they must be anxious also because they are claiming that these Naxalites are the protectors and saviors. You also cannot fire at them. So the question over here is, in these circumstances, what should you do? In these circumstances, very simply, find the middle ground. How do you find the middle ground? Now, if you have to write this answer, let me look at the questions given here also. A says, what are the options available to cope with the situation? You have 3 options. Number 1, you can release the insurgents. If you release the insurgents, what is the advantage? That you de-escalate the tension, the situation, and there is no civilian casualty. Problem is that number 1, you are undoing all the hard work that your intelligence agencies and that your security forces have done. And number 2, you're setting a very bad precedent. Second option that you have is to use force against the women. Advantage, it disperses the crowd and you will be able to secure the arrest of the insurgents. Disadvantage is that there will be civilian casualties. This will vitiate public trust and escalate tensions in the area. Even if you are able to arrest the insurgents today, tomorrow many more people will become insurgents merely because the government used force against tribal women. Third, negotiate with the tribal women. Advantage, it de-escalates the situation peacefully. Number 2, it ensures civilian safety. And number 3, it buys you time to secure reinforcements. In the time that it is taking for the negotiations, you can get in touch with your superior officers. You can ask for their advice, their instructions. You can ask them to send you backup. You can ask them to send you reinforcements. Problem is that negotiations may fail. The women are very aggressive, very agitated. There's a possibility they might not agree with you, they might not listen to you. Now, this is your, these are the options that are available. Second question says, what are the ethical dilemmas? Now, what is a dilemma? A choice between 2 options that seem to be equally right or equally wrong. To emphasize that both the options are equally right or equally wrong, in the middle, always use the word versus. For example, you should write 3 dilemmas. Let me still write 4 over here. What is the first dilemma? Public order, which can be achieved by releasing the insurgents, versus public welfare, which requires their arrest. Number 2, rule-based approach, which suggests using force against aggressive crowds, versus role-based approach, which necessitates maintaining public safety and public welfare. Third, prompt resolution, which can be achieved by releasing the insurgents or using force, versus setting the right precedent, which depends upon public trust. And number 4, short-term safety of the personnel versus long-term impact on the region. I have written 4. In the exam, you need to write only 3, and this should take you about 50 to 60 words. Maintain the word limit also, otherwise completing the paper will not be easy. Third question given in this case, which option should be adopted and why? Now here, right in the beginning, say, which option will you choose? You will choose negotiation. So say that Rohit must neither release the insurgents nor use force against the women. He should try to negotiate the women with the women. How will he negotiate? Number 1, by explaining the due process of law and clearly articulating the police's intention to maintain peace in the region. Number 2, involve local tribal leaders to help with the mediation. And number 3, this time that you're using for the negotiation, use this time to establish contact with superior officers for instructions and for reinforcements. Now the question is saying, why should you choose this option? Why should we negotiate? Because number 1, releasing the insurgents would set a bad precedent. The government will lose face. It will weaken the morale of the security forces, and in the future, it will embolden Naxalites. Number 2, using force would amount to a Pyrrhic victory. Now, yes, this word some students might have a bit of a problem with. Using force would amount to a Pyrrhic victory. What is a Pyrrhic victory? A victory that is extremely costly. A victory that is so expensive that it seems like defeat. For example, Ashoka's victory at Kalinga. That is what you call a Pyrrhic victory. He won the war, but it came at such a heavy price that you cannot really distinguish it from defeat. A victory also starts seeming like you've lost. Here you can use force. You will be able to arrest the Naxalites, but that will be a Pyrrhic victory. And third, negotiations prevent violence, preserve public trust, and they buy time to contact the superiors to get reinforcements. So that is why he should negotiate, and the reasons are given here. And fourth, finally, what are the extra precautionary measures to be adopted by the police in dealing with women protesters? I have written about 6 points. You write 3 or 4 also. Answer will be satisfactory. In dealing with the women protesters, number 1, deploy female police officers to foster empathy, appropriate handling of the protesters. Number 2, training should be provided in advance on gender sensitivity, non-violent communication, de-escalation tactics. Number 3, women protesters, so avoid physical contact unless it is absolutely necessary. Where it is required, physical contact should be carried out only by female officers. Number 4, precautions with regard to the use of force, especially with women who are pregnant. One difference, because you're not affecting one life, you're affecting 2. Even if I can also say senior citizens here, senior women or aged women here. I can say women who are unwell. I can say women who have physical disabilities. That also applies to men. But one difference between the two genders is that women might be pregnant. If you manhandle them, if you beat them up, if you hit them in an inappropriate manner, it will not affect 1, it will affect 2 lives. 4th or 5th, avoid strip searches or invasive body checks. Where they have to be conducted, they should be conducted only by female officers in a private and a dignified manner. And finally, ensure video cameras to ensure transparency and accountability in handling of the protesters. 6 points written here, 3 or 4 you write, and the answer should be satisfactory. Thank you.